You know, in the process of us having these painful conversations about racism in America, there is one culprit that seems to be able to get away without ever being held accountable for their actions. The white evangelical church, or the white church, Christianity in America. Before there was an abortion debate brought to you by the evangelical Christian conservative movement, before there was a debate about homosexuality brought to you in part, or brought to you by the evangelical Christian conservative movement, there was racism. It has been here since the church has been here. Look up the slave Bible. Just look it up. Some of you didn't even realize there was one, and there is. There is a thing called the slave Bible. Well, within the slave Bible, one passage matters more than any other passage. It's one of the things that slaves were taught during chattel slavery. According to the Bible, slaves, obey your masters. That's the impetus for the slave Bible. Again, you can look it up. At the end of the Civil War and the beginning of Reconstruction, the organization, the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan, were formed. What is their calling card? What is it that distinguishes the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan from every other white supremacist organization in America? The burning of a Christian cross. It was the clearest indication that the Klan was in your area, and it wasn't like they weren't, they were all over. And it was also the clearest indication that whatever was about to happen with the Klan, black folks were going to catch hell. This went on throughout all of the Jim Crow South and in certain places in the North as well. But the clearest indication was a burning cross. Now, for years, people, evangelical Christians, have tried to distance themselves from the Klan. You can't. At one point, the Klan called themselves a Christian organization. Spoiler alert, they still do. They still consider themselves to be a Christian organization. But again, I'm not done. I don't know whether or not it was Martin Luther King or Malcolm X, but one of the two of them said the most segregated time in America is Sunday morning. But even the black church, even the black Christian church, has not been exempt from the damage that white evangelical Christian conservatism has done. The bombing of a black church in Birmingham, Alabama, that killed 4 black girls. Fast forward, Dylan Roof walks into a black Christian church and kills 9 people. Now, evangelical Christians have always been able to push them, oh, well, that's not us. Oh, that's not my Christianity. That's not my Christianity. Is it though? Isn't it? Because if you think the bombing of a black church, the lynchings of black people.
Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm hoping that you're doing super great from wherever you're watching me from. As you know, I'm a presenter Jinto Stories, and I'm hoping that you are super great. Now there's something that I need us to get to learn and teach ourselves about that, and this is the place of white evangelicals and the hypocrisy in how they viewed Christianity. Now, atrocities committed by white evangelicals against black people span centuries and are deeply entwined with both American history and the global legacy of colonialism. Evangelical Christianity, while often associated with revivalist favor and personal salvation, was also used as a powerful ideology to justify slavery, segregation, and racial subjugation. Many white evangelicals, especially in the United States, used biblical interpretation to maintain white supremacy. and dehumanize black people. The religion favor of evangelicalism, instead of being a force of liberation, was twisted into a system that reinforced racial hierarchies and justified unimaginable cruelty. And this shows you how crazy all these things happened. And it really makes you want to question the place of religion and how it has played in dehumanizing black people in the United States. During the transatlantic slave trade and throughout era of American slavery, white evangelical played a critical role in providing theological justification for slavery. They manipulated scripture to support the belief that Africans were the descendants of Ham, who was cast by God, thereby portraying black people as divinely destined, for servitude. This distorted theology made it possible for white Christians to reconcile the brutal treatment of enslaved Africans with their religious beliefs. Evangelical preachers often insisted that slavery was a benevolent institution that introduced Africans to Christianity, masking the horrors of rape, whipping, family separation, and psychological abuse as civilizing mission ordained by God. You know what? I want us to watch this video. Really, we have beautiful good black brothers sharing their perspective in regards to this, because I feel like this is a topic that most often people don't want to talk about, people don't want to touch about. But for me, I say that it's important for us to have these discussions, because they form the fabrics of our society and how we view race, racism, and religion. So stay tuned as you watch the video. We hope to learn from the video. As you know, I'm your host and presenter, Unique Stories, and if you're watching us for the first time, I'll ask you to subscribe to the channel, join the membership, and really get to see all we can offer you. For those who are always supporting me through my Cash App account, just know that I'm seeing what you're doing, and I'm really grateful. For those who are always sending me super thanks, I'm super grateful. If you wish to support me, my Cash App is on my bio. And let's get into it. I'll be back, and then we'll be sharing our thoughts in regards to this.
As the Klan burns a cross behind him, if you think that's not your Christianity, then you haven't been paying attention. It gets worse. Let's get into the financial part of it. Do y'all realize that the reason a lot of these Christian academies and these Christian schools and these Christian colleges exist in the first place is because the white evangelical Christian movement did not want to integrate with black folk. They did not. One of Strom Thurmond's most famous speeches before he got on the floor of the fucking Senate was the speech where he talked about not allowing black people to integrate into their homes, their stores, their pools, and their churches. Evangelical Christian conservatism propped up a whole lot of white supremacy. Always has. If you go through the history of the Red Summer, which basically white folks destroying black people's livelihoods, their homes, their neighborhoods, their businesses, and things of that nature, you will find that a lot of the knights of the Ku Klux Klan were not only there, but they were screaming their Christian bona fides while they were doing it. Jerry Falwell, one of the leaders of the evangelical Christian conservative movement, complained and sued the federal government. I believe he sued them, or they sued him, to keep his tax-exempt status while also opening up these Christian schools and Christian academies where they did not have to integrate. The federal government said, no. And the other fucked up thing about that is, when it came to public schools, where white kids and black kids were going to be going together, and white people did not want their kids going to school with these black folks, and they created these Christian academies, one of the things that they did through legislative, sleight of hand, they were siphoning money out of the public schools' coffers to go to these Christian academies and these Christian schools and things of that nature. You see, the separation of church and state didn't just fall down. It's always been falling. This was done in the 60s and the 70s, long before now. Let's talk about the fact that these Christian schools and Christian academies were only created because they did not want to integrate with black students and black children. But through a bunch of legislative sleight of hand, public school money went to fund these private schools, these private Christian schools. See, the wall between church and state has been eroding for years. For years. They were able to get away with this. Not because of abortion, not because of homosexuality, but because simply they did not want to go to school with black folk. They just didn't. Jerry Falwell was sued by the federal government for not allowing black students into places like Bob Jones University and Liberty University and stuff. Well, I think it's Liberty, whatever. So it became less profitable for them to do this. And that's when abortion and gay rights became the new calling card. Now you have the rise of Trump. Over the past 10 years, the evangelical Christian movement have found their perfect avatar. They spent 8 years calling President Barack Obama, everything except his actual name. Y'all remember that movie that the woman that was in Touched by an Angel made, where the big controversy was that the devil looked like Barack Obama? Do you think that was by accident? And now, since Trump has shown back up, and since he's been here, now the Christian movement is not only happy that they got their man in the White House, but now they feel like they can go back to their old roots of racism. That's why you see so many instances of people being racist and getting away with it. Because the first thing they'll tell you is, oh, I'm a Christian. I can't hate people. I'm a Christian. Like that has anything to do with it. The woman that called the little 5-year-old the N-word, I guarantee you, if you looked at the comments before they shut him off, there were a whole bunch of people that were saying, God bless you, God bless you, keep his hands over you. The Kenny Loggins Jesus joke is basically based on that. Remember when Megyn Kelly got her ass on television and said that Santa Claus and Jesus Christ were both white? So you see, one of the biggest culprits in the continued racism that America faces is the church, the white church. And until such time as people say this stuff out loud, we're never going to fix this. This is not the time to distance yourself from your religion. No, this is the time to confront the nasty racist history of white Christianity in America. Because it's getting worse. And it's all being done under the guise of following the teachings of Jesus Christ.
Happy Friday, guys. Looks like it's going to be a FAFO Friday. To the maggots that are out here on the internet whining and snotting, saying this is not what they voted for. That they don't understand what he's doing. They didn't vote for this. What is he doing? Trump came out and said, y'all can quit all that lying. Because he campaigned on this. He said y'all signed up for this. Because he campaigned on it. And you're voting for him. So says you supported it. So Trump said stop lying. Trump said stop lying. Y'all knew what he was doing because he told you. And in this instance, he ain't lying. In this one instance, he ain't lying. Trump told y'all everything he was going to do. He said it was going to be a bloody mass deportation. He said he was going to bring in those tariffs. He has not lied one bit to y'all. During that entire campaign, that man was complete, what they would like to say now, transparent. So Trump's telling y'all, stop lying. Stop lying on him. See what happens? See what happens? Have y'all ever saw this movie? It's an old classic. I'm a black and white fan, black and white movie fan. It's this old classic movie called Face in the Crowd. Andy Griffith stars in it. He was this, what they called back in those days, a hobo, just out, doing his life. And he came across this woman who dad owned a radio station, I believe. Anyway, they got him on a little morning spot. It was a little deal. You sing something on the air, and the sheriff was gonna let him out. You know how them small towns did it. This was a small town in Arkansas. Anyway, from that he became this huge phenomenon. I mean, he went from a little radio station to eventually moving to Memphis for a bigger TV show. He got a TV show, so he had tons of followings. But his tons of followers were the lower class, the undereducated, the poor, white. He was a huge success in Arkansas. Okay? He could tell them to do whatever on his radio station, and they would go out and do it. And it was little harmless pranks, don't get me wrong. It was like, he was messing with, I think, the sheriff, or the guy that was running for mayor. He said he couldn't be a dog catcher. He said, as a matter of fact, everybody take your dogs over to his house. And they went over there, and they took all their dogs to his house. And everybody thought it was so funny. He was so hilarious. And the woman said, how does it feel? The woman that discovered him said, how does it feel? He said, what feel? He said, how does it feel? She said, how does it feel for your words to have so much impact on people the way it does? And he said, and he stopped to think. He said, I guess I do. Well, he started out as a humble man. He was just a little hobo, poor man, never had a dime in his pocket. But he was happy. And when he became, after they put him in the spotlight, and he got this huge audience, he became really, really powerful because of all the backing he had. Sound familiar? Okay. So he got, the more powerful he got, the more true him came out, and it was not good. So with all the power he had over all these people, he generated money. He had sponsors that wanted to sponsor his program. He had rich people that wanted to have his influence so they could, lean people in their direction. Of course, the politicians came and running because they wanted him to control, because of the control he had over the people. They wanted that. So they was finna just blow him up and put him in the political arena and everything. The man was huge. Ratings out of this world. Who does that sound like? Okay, so one day, because he had got so powerful and so huge, his ego had got out of control, and everybody around him was like, they saw him for who he were, but they were hiding that from the public. And the woman who, you could just say, created him, brought him to the public, she was at her wit's end, because he dogged her out through the whole movie. She was in love with him. He dogged her out. One day she came to the studio, and he was wrapping up. He was getting ready to wrap up the show, and at the end of the show, they would have the credits scrolling, and then they would have him and he called this little Cracker Barrel group of guys that he sat around and talked to, and they just went nodded along with him, a whole bunch of, So one night he was closing out the show, and they had the credits rolling. They had the sound down so the people couldn't hear him, but they could see him. So he was in the camera smiling and waving like he was saying good things. But what he was saying was, good night, you stupid idiots. He said I could get these people, I could lead them anywhere. He was calling them sheep. So the woman, she turned the volume up where it was going out over the broadcast. So the people started hearing, good night, you dumb idiots. Look at them, a bunch of dumb sheep. I could lead them wherever. And the people in his little group, they just cracking up laughing. So the people who were still tuned in, because they were watching the credits go by, they hadn't turned the show off. They started seeing him for who he is. So they started getting hot. They started blowing up the television station. Told me we'll never watch him again. His ratings fell like a rock, like a boulder. And just that quick, he was through. The public was through with him. But it was only because they got to see the real him. Got it? Now, Fast forward to modern day times. What does it look like MAGA is going through? Who, their leader, how did he become in so much power? How did he get so much control? Ratings from a TV show, right? Of how that TV show presented him. How they made him look to be something that he wasn't. So Donald Trump, he profited off this ratings from The Apprentice. That's what gave him the public recognition that the MAGA thinks he has. So I'll say that to say this. If you will look back at that, look it up, it's called Facing the Crowd. You will see so many resemblance to today and Trump and his following. Just because a person says what they want to say in public does not mean that's who they truly are. Okay? So, Donald Trump is telling y'all now, shut the hell up. Go along, because you signed up for this. Those are his words. Look up the article. Look up the article itself. Trump tells the public to suck it up. He tells MAGA to suck it up. He says to stop the whining because this is what you asked for. He said, I campaigned on this. I campaigned on this. So now he's coming out telling y'all, you asked for it and I'm going to give it to you. And he don't care how you feel about it now. It's too late. It's too late. I'm in here now. I'm in here. And now that he's in here and he's showing that he is not for the working class, he is not for the poorly educated, he is not for the rural community, he is not for the man working from 9 to 5. He ain't for y'all. He is not for y'all. Y'all got him in there. But who Trump is really for, who he fooled y'all to be really for, Trump is for him and his billionaire, millionaire buddies. He's in here to ensure the future and the well-being of the 1%. And now that the facts is slapping y'all in the face, Donald Trump is saying, suck it up, buttercup. So, on this Friday, on this FAFO Friday, I have one question before I get out of here. And it's to MAGA. Is it great again yet? Asking for a friend.
Hello folks, welcome back to the channel. There's so many disturbing things that white evangelicals did that some are still not documented, but some people have information out there in regards to this. And these are things that have been happening for the longest time when we try to talk about race, racism, and religion, how they are, connected. So that being said, really this is a big problem. And even more disturbing is that while some evangelicals were indeed abolitionists, the vast majority of white evangelicals in the American Southern fiercely defended slavery. Denominations like the Southern Baptist Convention were literally formed in defense of slavery. Their foundational documents and early sermons revealed a commitment to maintain the institution of slavery as biblically justified and morally right. They saw the social order with white men at the top and black people in the chain. As part of God's natural order, the spiritual endorsement of racial violence perpetuated a system of terror for generations. The weaponization of Christianity. These people weaponized Christianity against black folks. They used scriptures. They used all these things that made them look better than black folks, and they used religion. They say that this is God's social order for you to be at the bottom and white people to be at the top, and this is how they managed to do this. And also, after the abolition of slavery, white evangelicals continued their legacy of anti-black oppression during the Jim Crow era. Churches remained segregated, and evangelicals in positions of power often supported or turned a blind eye to the laws and social customs that institutionalized white supremacy. Evangelical leaders and congregation provided the moral cover for lynchings, voter suppression, to black Americans. While many white evangelicals spoke for morality and godliness, they refused to extend those values to racial justice, choosing instead to uphold a racist status quo. You cannot say, or you cannot claim, you cannot read in front of people that God created us in His own image and likeness to mean that I am a son of God, you are a son of God. But why will you treat me as if I'm not son of God and all of us are children of God, right? Those are critical questions that people needed to ask. And the white evangelicals, they did this. And I don't know how they got away with this because people seems not to be questioning them and how all this happened. Now, lynching as a form of racial terror used to enforce white dominance was often carried out with quiet approval or outright support of white evangelical communities. Many of these lynchings occurred on Sundays after church services in a grotesque display of religious hypocrisy. Children and families would attend these public executions, reinforcing a culture where violence against black bodies was normalized and sanctified. And in some cases, evangelical ministers preached sermons warning against race mixing. They didn't want black people and white people to mix their race because, according to them, according to the social order, white people are at the top, black people are at the bottom. And how will they agree with you to mix race when they know that you are below the social status? And also suggesting that such lynchings were necessary to preserve Christian civilization. Now, also, white evangelicals also resisted the civil rights movement, painting it with a communist conspiracy or challenge to God's divine order. When Martin Luther King Jr. and civil rights leaders called for justice, equality, and an end to segregation, they were met with hostility from white evangelical pastors and lay people alike. Rather than supporting efforts to desegregate schools, secure voting rights, and end police brutality, many white evangelicals chose the side of the law and order, which in practice meant upholding systemic racism. This opposition was not passive, it was vocal, strategic, and deeply theological, claiming that racial integration was against the will of God. According to them, according to them, the social order was that black people at the top, or black people at the bottom, white people at the top. That, according to them, was God's social order. So that's what they believe. So interfering with that, or trying to see black people claiming equality, to them, that was interfering with God's social order. And they met people like Martin King Jr. with hostility when they tried to talk about this. Also, in the 1980s and beyond, white evangelicals became a cornerstone of the religious right, a political movement that championed conservative social values but ignored the actively suppressed calls for racial justice. This era saw the rise of figures like Jerry Falwell, who opposed civil rights legislation and founded Christian schools that were essential segregation academics. The institutions were designed to keep white children from attending integrated public schools, perpetuating racial divisions in the name of Christian education. Again, religious doctrine was weaponized to defend the privileges of whiteness. And that's how they did it. You get to look at the modern evangelical movements continue to grapple with this legacy. Many white evangelicals remain too restrained to be resistant to movements like Black Lives Matter, framing them as anti-white or divisive. Discussions about systemic racism are often dismissed as woke ideology. Right? And pastors who speak about racial reconciliation frequently face backlash from their own congregation. This persistent denial of racial injustice reveals a deep unwillingness to confront the sins of the past and present, even while professing to serve a God of justice and truth. Also, you need to get to understand this. Missionary work by white evangelicals in Africa. We also get to look at that. And the Caribbean often replicates colonial power dynamics. Rather than partnering with local churches, many white evangelicals impose their theology, language, and cultural values on the communities they claim to help. The neocolonial attitude reinforces the idea that white Christians are spiritually superior, reducing black communities to passive recipients of salvation and charity rather than the equal partners in faith. These missions often ignore the structural causes of poverty, instead promoting the theology that blames individuals for systemic suffering. And that is how they do this. Now, I like to conclude by saying that the atrocities committed by white evangelicals against black people are not merely historical footnotes. They are foundational to understanding the intersection between race, religion, and power. Remember, I talked about this when I began introducing the video. From slavery to segregation, from lynching to modern racial differences, white evangelicals has too often been on the so wrong side of justice. Until this legacy is acknowledged, confessed, and dismantled, the spiritual wounds inflicted on black communities will continue to fester. True reconciliation demands more than apologies. It requires truth, repentance, and the dismantling of structures that allowed such atrocities to occur in the name of God. I like to say that there is so many atrocities that were done in the name of God. There's so many lives were taken in the name of God. There's so many corrupt things. There's so many greedy things that were undertaken in the name of God. So I honestly really want to know what you feel about this or what you think about this. It's really important. As you know, I'm a presenter of Stories, and I hope that you are super fine. But until then, I'm hoping to see you in my next video. Peace, love, and harmony. Salute.